A couple weeks ago, Molly and I got to go out and play a few hours of Star Wars Outlaws, the new open-world video game coming out in 1 month. Today we can finally talk about our experience. The short version is that it was fun. We played a total of 4 hours on the planets Tashara and Kijimi, and that didn't feel like nearly enough time. I feel like we barely scratched the surface of Tashara, where we spent most of our time. I've talked before about the type of gamer I am. I don't play a ton of open-world games, but I'm getting into them more and more. I really enjoy all the Spider-Man games. I just played Ghost of Tsushima, which was awesome. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom were phenomenal, but of all those games, I think Spider-Man 2 is the only one that I played to 100% completion. As a gamer, I tend to be more interested in story. I focus on that when I play a game, and once I beat it, I usually don't feel like playing more. For some reason, Spider-Man really grabbed me and made me want to continue on. I'll also mention Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which has some open-world elements to it. That's another game I fully completed. What I'm trying to say is that when it comes to video games, I'm primarily focused on story over anything else, and it's too early for me to say much about the story of Outlaws. What I've heard so far I like, but we didn't experience a ton during our gameplay session. Part of that is our own fault. Molly and I genuinely were having fun just driving around on Tashara looking for random stuff to do, and all the different distractions this game offers have been fun. You can play sabacc, go shopping, bet on father racing, eavesdrop on bar patrons to find rumors, do speeder races. We actually did get pulled into goofing around in side quests instead of prioritizing the main story missions, which surprised me. That's not usually how I play games. And the story missions we did play provided moments of intrigue to encourage getting into those diversions. Like at one point, we were breaking into a Crimson Dawn base, and I just happened to read a tablet that claimed to have a contact who knew which father was going to win the next race. That made me want to gamble as many credits as I could to see if that tip would pay off. The entire main city area of Tashara was really cool. It felt crowded when compared to Rambler's Reach and Star Wars Jedi Survivor, but not so crowded that you couldn't move around. It felt like a genuine city. The same could be said for Kijimi. Citizens are walking around or having conversations in common areas, and it's fun to hear people vaguely talking about your recent exploits, whether they were successes or failures. From what I saw, both planets unlocked new areas simply by exploration. I've seen some concerns that the game would follow the Assassin's Creed tower loop. I barely played the first Assassin's Creed, so I'm only kind of familiar with that, or I guess it would be similar to the towers you climb in Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. My point is, I didn't experience anything like that in Outlaws, but we also only played on 2 planets. Tashara seemed larger, with more to explore. The size of the maps felt good to me. It's interesting, because it's not like each planet will be the size of Tsushima's map, for example, but the combined playable areas might be comparable. I don't know that for sure. I'm trying to say that we don't have one continuous map to explore, we have several spread out over a bunch of planets. The missions themselves are enjoyable. They lean into stealth more than I would personally prefer. I'm always happy to try stealth. Games like Spider-Man, Ghost of Tsushima, Uncharted, and The Last of Us all have stealth aspects, but I'm not very good at it, so I inevitably wind up in panicked fist or gunfights. Outlaws felt a little more punishing when that happened because of the reputation system, which I'll talk about more in a bit. I enjoy that system, and it did raise the stakes on getting caught. I do not want Kira mad at me. I don't think I had a great grasp on all my abilities while sneaking around. Part of that is probably because we didn't get to go through what I assume will be the tutorial missions, so I would forget to fully utilize Nyx, who is a great companion by the way. I would play through a segment and painstakingly take out all the enemies one by one, and then see all the better ways I could have used the environment to my advantage after the fact. There were also some moments where I was just confused as to where to go or how to sneak around. I was able to crawl through a vent and out the other side, but then couldn't turn around and get back in the vent, which seemed strange. There were moments where I felt like player agency had been limited like that. Nyx can go fetch blasters for you, and then you can use the more powerful weapons until they're empty, or until you climb into a vent or get on your speeder and Kay will just drop them, which seems like a strange choice. I guess there's something to be said about the realism of not being able to carry an entire arsenal around like in Grand Theft Auto, but it feels weird to have those decisions to carry a weapon or not be taken out of your hands, literally. The combat itself was fun. It does feel good to have Nyx get you a stronger weapon and then to unleash hell on the criminal syndicates. In some gameplay videos I thought the combat looked a little slow, but it didn't feel slow. I had no complaints there. There are 2 mini-games that pop up frequently when you're breaking into different bases. One is like a Star Wars version of Wordle or Mastermind where you have to guess a password. If you get a symbol correct, it'll turn yellow. If the symbol and its location are correct, it locks in and turns green. And you have a certain number of guesses to get the password right. I like puzzles like that, so I enjoyed that game. But the other one, the Data Spike, it was like a rhythm game where you had to hit the trigger to a beat, and that game frustrated me. And I'm not bad at rhythm games, I am great at Guitar Hero. Playing this minigame just felt like a nuisance to me, but the good news is you can turn off one or both of the minigames if they get in the way of your enjoyment. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that or not, but I'm grateful it's an option. We got to do a little bit of space combat, and it was pretty similar to the Starfighter mode of Battlefront 2. Pretty simple, nothing like the complexity of Star Wars Squadrons, but I don't have much to say about it because we simply didn't do a whole lot in space. All in all, I enjoyed the gameplay. I didn't love it, it didn't make me feel like an amazingly talented scoundrel, at least not yet, but I see the potential for me to get better as a player, and there are new skills and abilities to unlock for all kinds of things, so hopefully I'll get better at the stealth side of things so I can keep a good reputation with at least some of the syndicates, and the reputation system is one of the coolest parts of the game in my opinion. Like I mentioned, it adds stakes to missions where you might have to do something against the syndicates who like you. There's a level of danger as you're sneaking around their bases, not wanting to make a new enemy, or sometimes you might have to make a choice between two syndicates who like you. That was both a lot of fun and very stressful for me as someone who just wants everyone to get along all the time. And it's not just during key moments that your reputation can change. I turned against the Pikes because f*** the Pikes, and then cruising around on Tashara, they would attack me if I ventured into their territory, and my reputation with them would go down more. The Empire is, of course, another threat on the ground and in space. We mostly dealt with the syndicates in our gameplay, but our friend Bombastic was smart enough to purposefully build up his wanted level with the Empire to see what would happen when it maxed out, and the Empire will predictably send stronger and stronger forces your way, including Death Troopers. I regret not thinking to do that myself. I think that's all I have to say about the gameplay, so what about the story? The aspect of the game I am most concerned with. Like I said, I feel like we only got a small taste of what's to come. We didn't get to experience much, but I did get to talk to some of the developers and the cast, including Umberly Gonzalez and Jay Rincon, and what they had to say got me excited. When it comes to Kay, she is stepping out into the larger galaxy for the very first time. It's similar to Luke Skywalker growing up on Tatooine and being thrust into an adventure he doesn't fully understand. He has to learn about the Jedi and the Force along the way. Kay grew up in Canto Bight and understands some of how the criminal world works, but she doesn't know all the major characters. I think that's a smart move to help educate players who might be in the same boat. Pretty much everyone is going to know Jabba the Hutt, but people who haven't read the comics might be surprised to see Kira in charge of Crimson Dawn, or be less familiar with the Pikes. Kay has some good, fun character beats with Nix outside of cutscenes, where she acts more vulnerable than the front she tries to put on. It very much feels like we will be working our way up from the bottom of the ladder. ND5 is the other major character I'm excited about. We didn't see him much at all in our gameplay, but what Jay Rincon had to say about the character has me very intrigued. He talked about ND5 having one of the most dramatic character arcs that a droid has had in Star Wars, comparing him to K2SO a bit, and talking about what humanity means for a mechanical being. I wish there were more I could say about the story at this point, but what we saw and discussed did not worry me at all. I'll post links to my interviews so you can hear all of that for yourself, speaking with Naveed Kavari, Julian Garrity, and Steve Blank from Lucasfilm, along with Umberly and Jay, was great. They were all knowledgeable and passionate and just fun to talk to. Okay, the last thing I need to address is the price. Do I think the game is worth the $70 standard price or the steep $110 gold edition? It's too early to say. My advice would be to wait for more extensive reviews from people who know the open world genre better than I do. My personal rule of thumb is to go for the least expensive editions of any game, because if I ever decide I want more, I can usually upgrade after the fact. All that said, I am excited to cover the game and play more. Everything I experienced in Outlaws was promising. There were some gameplay hiccups here or there, but nothing that I felt was a deal breaker. I guess it all comes down to how long and how good the story is for me, but like I said, we played for 4 hours and I feel like we barely scratched the surface. I see that as a good sign. But those are my thoughts on Outlaws for now. I'm sure I'll review the game in more depth when I'm able to sink more hours and story time into it, and I'll probably cover the story on its own when the time comes. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our socials, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.